Wednesday in Woburn. I'm your host, Samantha Stone, and it is finally not raining and sunny and hot as a result. I'm not sure it's better than rain, but I'm excited today. We have a lot of great things to talk about. We have Carol here who's going to chat with us about the big water infrastructure project. And we also have the mayor, of course, which we'll start with, and school committee candidate Jesse is going to join us as well. Welcome, Scott.
Hi, Samantha.
Glad to have you here. Before we dive in with Carol and talk about sort of water infrastructure and things like that, I was looking at the calendar, which you know I always do. And one of the things I realized is that we have a Woburn Cultural Council, and I am completely ignorant about what that council does. And I know, just read a little bit of the information on there. It looks like there's sort of state level grants and programs and things that we could participate in. I just thought maybe you could tell us a little bit about what that is or direct us to someone who might be able to.
Yeah, that's a good question. So the cultural council that we have is set up to administer state funding, and it's based on a formula grant. So the city gets between 7,000 and 9,000 annually, which they're charged to give out to different groups who have to apply for the funding. So Joe Flaherty, very nice guy, has been the chairman, would be a great person to have brought on and talk about some of the different funding ventures or funding applications that they've granted over the years. So I can get you Joe's information, and he would be ideal to come on. But it's a committee that flies under the radar screen, but they do give out some very important funding to small funding.
Great. Well, that's good to know. We'll definitely have Joe on. I'd love to
Yep.
learn more about that. That's awesome. When last we connected about the police union, we had gone to arbitration. I thought I would just check in and see if there was any updates. I know that can be a rather long process sometimes, so I just didn't know if there was any news.
It is a long process, so we haven't met since the last time I spoke. Whenever there's a meeting scheduled, they schedule them every month or so. We'll discuss some of the options, and at this point, we're open to different suggestions, and we certainly have our limits and guidelines that we're going by, but we're always willing to try to settle before it goes to arbitration. It takes a while. Decisions don't get, if we go to arbitration and have a full-blown hearing, we wouldn't get a decision back sometime till March at the earliest. So it's a ways off.
We won't need to do that.
And then that time we'll be ready to start negotiations again, because the contracts will end. The contracts for them end the 24th, so June 30th, 2024. So we're already at that point where you would go to arbitration. We'd be getting a decision and starting up negotiating again for the next 3 years.
Well, let's hope we don't have to do that.
Right.
It's a tough process, I know. I know that Carol's going to catch us up on sort of the project around water and infrastructure. Before I have her on to talk about that, I wanted to just get sort of a funding update from you. I know we've made some progress since the last time we talked about that. It's an infrastructure project that is getting funded largely from funds outside of city dollars because of the project. So I thought I'd get a little update.
So it's still there is funding from the SRF. That's the state revolving fund administered by the Mass DEP, and that there is a portion of that is a grant. Basically it's loan forgiveness, and then the other part is zero interest loan. So we'll be paying a significant amount through debt service. It's a very valuable grant because we won't be paying interest, and interest rates don't look like they're coming down anytime soon. So we're excited about that, and Carol can talk about it. It's a very competitive process, and we were at that in position. Carol can talk more about it, but we're well positioned because we've been meeting on this, taking the issue very seriously, and we've done a great job putting ourselves in that position by giving DEP the information that they need to put us on the funding list. So we're happy about that. We also do have opera funds that we plan on using to offset the total cost, so that will lower our debt service. Even though, as we said, it's interest free, there still is debt service, and we'd like to, to the extent that we can, we'd like to reduce that, and we'll be using some of our opera funds for that purpose. Samantha.
Awesome. Excellent. I just want to give a shout out to August 18th is Mayor's Field Day, which is always a fun day at Library Park. Anything else that you wanted to cover off before we dive into water?
Two things. we're doing that hazardous waste, which is the first time the city did the hazardous waste drop off for residents, to get rid of, those hazards that they have to go to Braintree to get rid of. So we'll be having a drop off of that. And the date, I believe, is August 4th. It's a Saturday. Don't hold me to it's either the 4th or the 5th.
Great.
So, we'll be working on that, getting some more information out. And we did, I do want to also, I know, Samantha, we had a tragic death in the city. So I just wanted to make sure that, we send our wishes and thoughts to the family who lost a young son to a tragic motorcycle accident. So, the whole community mourns with them. So I just wanted to make sure we get that out there too.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning that. It was a terribly tragic accident. And as always, Woburn always rallies around our community. So I hope they will reach out to us in the city with anything we can do to help support. I know there has been some counseling services at the school, even though it's summer, to help with any families who might have been students who want to talk through that and feel and, want some help and outreach. So thank you for bringing that up. And thank you for the hazardous waste. I know that's something that comes up quite a lot. So as that gets closer and we get a list of things that are able to be disposed of there, we'll make sure to share that with everybody.
Yeah, we hope to have something on the city's website by Wednesday. And then also the fire station dedication will be Thursday, August. See, I'm getting my days. I think it's August 3rd. It's Thursday, August 5th.
The first week in August is going to be really
Yeah.
busy. We'll look it up and won't hold you to the exact day.
Yeah, so that'll be a nice day. The station looks fantastic. It'll be open to the public, and we'll be doing tours of the station and have a ribbon cutting on Thursday, August 3rd at 11. But that again will also be out on the city website.
Fantastic, Scott. Thanks so much for joining us.
You're welcome, Samantha. Good to see you.
Yeah, thank you. Carol, I'm so excited to chat with you because I know when we talk about water infrastructure project, it is a long project. It is a big project. It's going to have a really big and important, meaningful impact for us. And it's sometimes easy to sort of lose sight of where we are in that process. So if you want to kind of start us off, we've chatted, gosh, longer ago than I thought about it last. We were talking before we started to tape. Tell us a little bit about what has proceeded in terms of the funding and what that now allows us to be able to do.
So thank you. And it's good to see everybody. Just one, I just want to pick up one item that the mayor just mentioned about the funding. He mentioned that the city had been ahead of this issue, and that absolutely did help the city position themselves for this very good funding package from the state. And I do want to say that Woburn was only one of 39 new projects that was selected, and they had received 141 applications.
Well, I just want to pause and give like a round of applause. It feels weird for just me clapping, but just envision everybody else listening and watching clapping too. That is actually huge. And a huge thank you to us as a city, but also to Carol, your work and the team's work to prepare and put us in that position. That's really meaningful for us. So thank you for sharing that stat.
Yeah, no, it's a very good situation. And, honestly, when we submitted that request for funding, we didn't know that was a year ago, and we didn't know interest rates were going to keep going up the way they have. So it's turned out to be very, very beneficial. So as far as the project goes, I don't remember exactly when I gave the last update to you, but we have completed all of the field investigations. So we have to do a survey of the site. We have to drill borings to see what the soils are below the new facilities. We have to identify where all the underground pipes are. So that was all completed last year. And the design began. The design is pretty far along right now. We're looking at wrapping up in September. And, it's a long process because there's sort of, you start with a concept, and then you develop it further, and then you do some more, and then you're constantly working with the city because they have to live with and operate this facility for the next however many years. So there's a lot of back and forth and collaboration, and that's gone really well. The architecture for the facility was established. It'll match the existing buildings that are there, so it'll have that old look to it to sort of reflect on the style of the original pump station, the with the steam engine that you guys ran a few months ago. And so a lot of things have been happening. And we received the notice of the funding preliminarily in January, but then finalized in March. And there's a permitting process going on right now. We have to submit the documents to the Conservation Commission because obviously we're very close to Horn Pond, right on the shores. So they're going to be concerned that we're protecting the pond while the facility is being constructed. So that's getting moving. And we will be submitting the documents to the state, to the DEP for their review and approval, in a couple months. So.
Wow, that's actually quite a lot of progress
Moving
in that amount of time. That's a lot going on. When
Yeah.
do we expect we might break ground on the building?
So we expect that hopefully if the project gets approved on the schedule that we're looking at, the construction contract would be awarded around January, maybe February of 2024. And they should be able to get started out in the spring. And the one thing that we did do is we have increased the duration of the construction. We were originally planning on 15 months, which was based on some recent projects that we completed a year or two ago. But we've just changed that to be 18 months for construction. And that's primarily because there are still supply chain issues. Not nearly as bad as they had been, and things are not getting worse, but they still also haven't really improved yet either. So, so we're planning on about an 18-month construction. So the startup would be late summer of 2025. If all goes according to plan.
Well, that sounds great. That is, I know it sounds like so far away, but that's a huge set of things that needs to happen. And we've done a lot of that hard work. So I love to learn about that progress and what's happening there. Now, in the meantime, we are obviously our last at least few months, I think the PFAS numbers in our water supply have been under the numbers. We know that may not always completely sustain, but is there anything else we're doing to help sort of mitigate things to continue to keep that as low as we can while this project is happening?
Yeah, so the city samples monthly. The last time the levels were above the state standard was September of 2022, and the levels have been low since then. And we just took the July sample, so I don't have the results yet, but we are getting to that time of the year, which the mid to late summer, when the levels start to tick up a little bit. And so we're just watching it closely, and we're just sampling early in the month so that if we need to resample, we can, just to make sure we have. But the city already has the mitigation measures in place. So they have the bottle filling station at the senior center, and that will remain. And the city also has the bottled water rebate program, which kicks in when the levels go above the state standard. So that hasn't been in effect for several months now because the levels have been low. But if that were to happen, that program is already in place. And all the information on that is on the city's website.
Awesome. Carol, thank you so much for joining us and giving us an update. This is exciting. We'll touch base again, maybe right before we break ground and touch base where we are from a timing perspective. But this is a really important project for our city. It will improve a big piece of infrastructure that we need. And the team and the city water department and everyone involved has done such a great job keeping this moving forward and getting us in a great position to do this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, Jessie Wetzel, who is running for school committee. Welcome, Jessie.
Hi, Samantha. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm thrilled to have you on board. Now, school committee is a big commitment, as we all know. Tell us what motivated you to join in the race.
Sure. Great question. Honestly, I heard this past year there was going to be several openings on the school committee. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to be in the school district for the next 18 years. I can either take the back seat or I can take the wheel. It's a big decision, you know, it didn't come lightly. I had to think about my goals and what I wanted to do. I spoke to several school committee members prior to making the decision, some fellow parents to try to get their feedback and opinions. And I currently volunteer within the school districts. I volunteer within the community. I'm fairly active, but you know, I really wanted to take that next step in my journey. And I thought school committee seems like the logical choice given my professional background and having kids in the school system. So, you know, here I am taking the wheel and going for it.
Well, we're thrilled that you're in the race. I so appreciate and value everyone who puts their hat in the ring for things like this, because I know it is time consuming and takes a lot of resources and energy. So I'm so, so grateful to you and everyone who runs for local office. Local office, I think, affects our day-to-day more than probably all the other things that are equally important, but this touches us so much. Now, you are a teacher of visually impaired students, which of course will bring, you know, a unique point of view to the school committee. Tell us a little bit about your background there and how you think that will impact how you approach the role of a school committee member.
Sure. So I think it's sort of twofold. I am the teacher of the visually impaired. I also have a business background, as a matter of fact, but I also have my oldest daughter is also visually impaired. So I think I kind of bring two perspectives to the table, both that professional training as a TVI, as a special education teacher, as well as a parent who has a daughter that is in special education, who's seeing providers. So my goal is to kind of bridge that gap between the parent, the educator, the administrator, the staff, et cetera, within the school. And I see both sides as I'm living them currently. And I think I can be a great asset in that regard.
So tell us a little, one of the things you said in your announcement was that improving communication between all members of the community. So, you know, what you talked about there is a little bit on that. Was an important part of a role you hoped to play. Tell us a little bit about how on school committee you might approach that.
Sure. I mean, I think communication in anything we do is one of the most important things we can do in our entire life. I think strong communication can get you a lot of places. I think this past year was challenging for administrators, parents, staff, everybody. It was hard. There's a lot of healing that needs to take place. And I think being transparent as you can be, and keeping those communication dialogues open between the families, between the teachers, between the staff, between the administrators, and really fostering that kind of healing environment where people feel comfortable and confident in order to come forward and talk and discuss. But also I think there's an education piece there as well. I think sometimes the school committee and the decisions made can be misunderstood. And I think that comes from a lack of understanding and a lack of knowledge. So one of the things, ideas I had really is potentially having the community understand maybe why I voted a certain way. I did this because of this, and here's why. And the school committee is doing this because these are the goals that we need to meet. I think that oftentimes that piece can be overlooked and people get upset because they don't have the full picture. They only have one piece of the big puzzle. So I kind of want to take all those pieces and bring them together to make it whole again and start that healing process.
You know, one of the things that, as my earrings are popping out of my head, I'm just going to take the other one off. One of the things, it's such a big thing that you just said, everything's falling off my head. One of the things that I think is really an interesting challenge for us as a community in general is that the school committee plays an instrumental and really important part in our school systems, but it is a piece of a much bigger infrastructure around it. And I have to plead some ignorance. I understand. I watch a lot of school committee meetings. I talk to a lot of folks, but I don't necessarily understand all the ins and outs of what school committee can do and can't do and all of those pieces. And so I imagine education around that might be also something that would be helpful for the community at large.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you can go on the Department of Education's website and it will list out what the responsibilities are of the school committee, but it's a list, right? It's not everything that they do. And that list is fairly broad. There's not bullet points inside of the list. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? So no, I do think it would be helpful to have that. I think the community would appreciate it. And I think with more knowledge comes more understanding, comes more of a cohesive environment. And honestly, on that note too, in terms of communication, I have, like I said, reached out to all but one member of the school committee who I'll be meeting with this week. I've reached out to several aldermen. I'm setting up meetings with my director of the Parks and Rec, like Rory, the director of the library, director of the senior center. I think the school is such a big part of the community that you need to know all these other people that are part of that community. And Scott, if you're still on the call, I'd love to meet with you as well. But yeah, I think
he's
it's
dropped
important.
off. I'm sure he would be happy to meet with you, but just so you know, he's
I'll send him an email.
I don't want him to miss your message. I want him to know. Yeah. So, one of the things, you have been involved in schools and you have children in the schools, I think you mentioned. So, tell us a little bit what the strengths of our schools. I know it's very easy for us and important for us to focus on challenges and where we have rooms of improvement, but there's also lots of good things that happen. What are some of the things that you take pride in our school systems?
First and foremost, the families, the people within the heart. The families are the heart of the school, the students, the staff, the teachers, the administration. That's what makes the school district what it is. And we would be nothing without that kindergarten teacher, my daughter specifically, who helped when we didn't have a teacher for 3 months because of a medical condition. And she set up all these different wonderful things for her. It was just, it made me so happy. I think that it's the people. Woburn as a town. So I grew up in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, about 2,000 people in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, more deers than people, fact. And when I moved to Woburn, which is over 40,000 people, it's quite a large town, but it operates, city really, but it operates as, I think, a smaller town. People will tell you that their grandparents lived down the street and where they got married, and now they inherited this house. People know cousins, and that to me was really amazing to see in such a big, sprawled out city. So I think the residents really care, and it shows. And so people in the entire community, not just our schools, because our schools, again, are a major part of our community.
One of the things that you also mentioned in your announcement that I think is important is around funding, and that I wanted to ask you about sort of the current funding. It was definitely a visible and highly discussed process that went through. Love to get your take on where we ended up and where compared to where you think we should be. It may be that you think we're in exactly the right place. It maybe you think we have. I'm certain you don't think we're overfunded. So tell us a little bit about your point of view of where we are, where we landed for this current fiscal year.
I think there's always work to be done. You can never stop working. And is there ever enough money? No, there's not. Money doesn't grow on trees. It's never going to happen, unfortunately. But I think one of the things we can do is take a more creative way of looking about how we spend our money. Our budget's about $78 million. That equates to roughly $20,000 per student, which is actually slightly higher than the state average. And I think if we can look at our city, it's a diverse city, right? We have over 20% of kids are on special education plans. Over 20% of residents in the city of Woburn speak something other than English at home as their first language. Around 6% live in poverty. So we have a lot of students that come from a very diverse background, which I think is wonderful inside the schools, because I think kids can gain so much information from that. But it does bring to the point where there's a lot of money we need to spend in order to get everyone on an equal playing field, is what education is all about. It's a least restrictive environment, and a free and appropriate education. And I think if we better look at the funds we have and better figure out creative ways to use those funds, whether that be educational grants. There's a lot of money out there that the government has. I know ESSER funds will be going away, which were the funds that we were given through COVID. But there's a lot of other money that I think is out there that we can potentially kind of get into and utilize, and then just really deep dive into those numbers and see where we can spend that money a little bit more effectively for the students.
And, this is a hard question to answer, and I don't actually know if there is an answer to this question, but you brought it up. So this is one of those, to me, slippery slope school committee questions, right? So school committee funds the schools. Administration decides how to spend that money, right? It's sort of traditional things. Not that it doesn't take input, not that it doesn't want it, but, a lot of the discussions that happened at the school committee meetings during the funding were about sort of, can we line item these things? Should we say we want to fund this or not that, and those types of things? And it gets tricky, and it's a hard balance, and I don't know what the answer is, but I'd love to kind of get your sense of what role the school committee can and should play in that process, and what role needs to be reserved for administration?
That's a wonderful question. And I think I don't want to speak too much out of turn because I'm not familiar entirely like with the legality of the question as to exactly the role the school committee can play. I know they can come up with the budget, like you had said, but it is up to the administrators of each building to figure out, okay, this is what we're going to do with this money, and this is what we're going to do with this money. I think, I don't know, but I would assume if somebody had an idea of, hey, what if we look at this, or what if we look at that, would that work? I think people, generally speaking, are open to ideas from others of ways to do something, even if that's something completely different that we've never done before.
Well, I certainly think school committee can foster an environment of communication and ideation, and I'm a big believer in collaboration, and ideas can come from anywhere across the city. They don't have to be people just involved in schools, in corporate partnerships and things, that some of which already exist, some of things, would be new. So thank you. I know that's a hard question to answer, so I appreciate you doing that. Now, I know that one of the other things, any city leader has an interesting challenge, which is to represent a community, a large community. And that sometimes means I'm going to represent things that of ideas that I agree with. I'm sometimes going to represent ideas I don't necessarily agree with, but I am going to be available to people to learn what's important to the community that I'm representing. So tell us a little bit about how you're getting to know the residents of Woburn, and where people can get to know you and share their ideas and thoughts and concerns.
Sure. I think one of the biggest things you can do is actively listen to somebody. Don't sit on your cell phone. Have a conversation face to face. I feel is best if possible. If not, understand, however you can get the conversation done. But I think actively listening to people, listening to their problems, trying to creatively problem solve, whether that's something a school committee, as a potential school committee member, I can help with, or it's something that needs to be funneled up like a chain of command where it needs to go to a teacher or a principal, because there's certain areas in school committees here, principals here, depending on the issue. But as a person, I always want to listen. I'm here for you as a potential school committee member, as a parent, as a human being. I think listening is one of the most important things you can do. And then just trying to help and be a good human. I think the world needs those people.
Yes, I think that's part of what makes Woburn special, is being there for each other, for sure. So I do agree with that. What are some, we talked about communication and funding. Are there other areas of the school system or the school committee that you want to focus on, or, know you want to take some time to get to know better and anticipate being something that we need to address, new challenges that are going to come up for us over the next, I guess it would be a couple-year term?
Yeah, I think technology is a big one. How we're spending the technology funds. It's only getting more and more where kids are going to be on iPads. They're going to be on computers. Work is done on iPads, computers, cell phones. We need to properly make sure our students are prepared for that environment and know how to use a computer, not just how to turn it on, not just how to type. There are a million other things that you need to understand on how to use a computer and any other form of technology. And I will tell you, as someone that if technology doesn't work, I'm gonna turn it on and off. And if that doesn't work, I'm like, So I think the understanding of technology is extremely important, and anything that we can do to funnel that into our school district, as well as jobs. Like, I feel like, you're 18 years old, you're going out into the world. Do you go to college? Do you join the armed forces? Do you start a business? I think educating our students on all the things that are available out there, the trades, which I think are underserved at this point. There's so many opportunities that I think we need to make sure our kiddos know about those and how to access them. And there's funding available for those as well, because it can be very intimidating to have to spend X, Y, and Z amount of money that's only going to continue to go up. So I think those are two areas that would be a particular focus. And then I'd be remiss not to mention also special education, something. I'm a special education teacher. I have a daughter in special education. I participate in CPAC meetings. So that's the Parent Advisory Council for people in special education. I'm actually a liaison for the Goodyear Elementary School. I think that sometimes special education can be misunderstood by the community. You just don't know what you don't know. Like when my daughter was born and diagnosed at 3 months old as visually impaired, I thought that meant blind. She couldn't see at all. No, not true. Blindness is a spectrum. I've learned a lot in the past 6.5 years. And I would love to share that knowledge with anyone that wants to listen. But I think it goes back to communication and understanding. I think a lot of what I have to say kind of goes back there.
Well, I love it. Thank you so much for joining me. Before I let you go, where should people reach out to you if they'd like to chat and get to know you? And then I'll also just give you an opportunity. Anything else you want to share with folks to let them know about your candidacy?
Sure. Just so where to reach out to me? I have a Facebook page that is Jessie Wetzel for Woburn School Committee. So you can find me there. I'll actually be at Studio Cafe. Sorry, I'm just looking down to remind myself. July 28th on Friday, from about noon to 1:30, and I'll be there for anyone that wants to pop over and say hi. I plan to rotate around to local businesses and just kind of sit. Anyone that wants to can pop over. I'm going to try to hit your door. There's over 16,000 homes, so I can't promise, but my goal is to knock on as many doors as I can. And if you see me in the community, whether that's getting a coffee or tomorrow I'll be at Library Field, they're doing a family night and a movie series. Please feel free to say hi. If I'm with my family, I likely will be totally fine. So please come over, say hi. And a little bit more about me, I guess. I was actually in the Army myself. I've always felt compelled to serve. I enlisted when I was 17. I did basic training between my junior, senior year of high school. I've been in Girl Scouts my whole life, beginning first grade, and I'm a lifelong member now and volunteer with them. I just think I've felt this need to serve, this desire, and I'm excited to bring that desire, that enthusiasm to the school committee should I get elected, and really eager to make an impact.
Thank you so much for joining us, Jessie. And Woburn, as always, please continue to take good care of each other.